Hello, folks. We're just adjusting our cameras, getting started here. 1 second. Let's see if this is going to pick up the right webcam. Unable to share webcam. Really? Oh boy. If you can hear us, by the way, if you could raise your hand, let us know. If you can hear us, that would be helpful. Great to see folks that you met before. Yeah, my webcam is not working all of a sudden. That's not nice. We're in Teams all day and then switching to GoToWebinar. I just assumed it was going to work. It's not.
Well, I
Apologies.
can represent you today, I guess,
All right,
if it
thanks,
doesn't work
Terry.
out.
Sorry, everybody. I did want to say
Sure.
hi. But let's get started over here. We want to make the best use of your time. Those of you who are here on time, just thanks so much. If you have any specific questions, we would love to hear those questions in the Q&A. And GoToWebinar, you can put your questions in Q&A. We can answer directly in there, or better yet, we'll try to answer live. So please do. Can I also get a show of hands? If you could put your hands down right now for those of you who have it up right now, but if you could raise your hand, just let us know if you were able to attend Ignite. That would be pretty helpful too for us to understand who was there online. So I see at least a few folks. Oh, wow, like 7, 8 people at least, 10 more even. Wow, can't really count that fast, but that's great to see that a bunch of you were able to make it. Many of the folks that I talked to were not able to make it. Either way, hopefully what we're about to present here is helpful to you. Let me start by sharing my screen. Okay. Let me know if you can see it, Carrie.
Yep, we can see your screen. And I'll just say
Great.
hello really quickly
Yes.
to everyone.
Mhm.
Um, in case you joined late, Asif is not able to get his camera on right now, so I'm representing both of us here visually. I'm going to turn my camera off in a moment when we get into the presentation, but I just wanted to start off by thanking you all so much for joining us. The purpose today is really to dive into all these great discussions that took place last week at Ignite. We're going to do a quick overview, kind of high level of the major takeaways that we pulled from that. If there's anything missing, we would love for you to either drop in the Q&A or in the chat. If there's something that's burning in your brain, a question that you don't have answered, please feel free to even put those in there now so that we can try to include those as part of our discussion. And, we'd love to take more questions towards the end as well. But I manage all of the partner relations for VisualSP, and I will be your contact person following the event if there's any other questions or information that you'll need. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Asif to introduce himself and get started. Thanks
Thanks
again.
so much, Carrie. And you'll hear from Carrie in the presentation as well. It's going to be both of us. And honestly, if any of you want to talk in the presentation, if you want to raise your hand or put in the Q&A, hey, I have something to say verbally, that's fine also. I see a lot of friends here, actually, which is wonderful to see so many names that we have talked to before. So thanks so much for being here. All right. I'm looking at some of the Q&A right now saying, Stephen, Demogod, strike again. Yep, that is true. And then Tammy, here's talking about, yes, the issues that I'm having, and it happens to everybody. Okay, so Microsoft Ignite Fall 2021. As you hopefully all know, that this was not the only Ignite that happened in the year, right? Usually there's only one Ignite that happens for Microsoft. This time it was two. One was in March, and then the other one right now in the beginning of November. So what does this all mean? Why did they do two Ignites to begin with? That should be the first question we should all be answering. And the reason is that Microsoft has too many announcements that they wanted to get out. And hopefully most of you know that we can sugarcoat it all we want, but Ignite is a marketing event for Microsoft. Many times they actually end up losing money doing it, although that's usually in the in-person conferences. This was online, so I'm sure they didn't lose any money. But regardless, it is a marketing event. There's a lot of stuff that they want us to know, and what do we do about those things? So what I want to do here, and actually I have an agenda, full agenda to talk to you about soon, but overall, talk about how does it affect us? Not just the marketing speak, but how does it affect us in reality? And I would love your questions and thoughts on this as well as we go along. Those of you who I've not had the pleasure to meet yet, my name is Asif Rahmani. I've been in this arena for quite a long time. 2001 is when I first got started with SharePoint, believe it or not, when it first came out, at least the official SharePoint. Before it was a code name before that. I am also the CEO of VisualSP. Would love to talk to you more about that also after the session if you would like to, and I'll show you and talk to you about that at the end of this session too. I've been an MVP for 15 years now, and what that really at the end of the day means is I love helping and connecting and talking to people, and Microsoft automatically awards people like us an MVP designation. So glad to be here to do these kind of things. Been also an author for books back in the day. Last was 2013. Maybe in the future someday again. We'll see. Anyway, let's talk about what you came here to talk about, which is the agenda of this conference, this webinar. Main things that Microsoft talked about and main overall themes we'll be talking about here is what should your employee experience strategy should be now that Microsoft Viva has been released. Not just Viva also, but even in addition to Viva, how do you enhance employee experience and why do you need to enhance employee experience? We'll tackle that. This is a big one, in my opinion, my point of view. So let me just take a very quick tangent and tell you that we as a company, VisualSP, have been digging into Dynamics 365 for about a year and a half, maybe a little bit more than that. Before that, we were very focused on Microsoft 365. And the reason we've been digging into that is because these two ecosystems are coming together a lot more than they were before. And many of our customers have told us that we need you to focus on this because we need help in that. Many of them are going to Dynamics. Third thing we'll talk about here is a whole metaverse, which is a huge topic on its own, but I'll touch upon that, talk about how Microsoft and Facebook are envisioning metaverse and what's in it for us on that. And the fourth thing here, this kind of goes along with the first bullet point here, talking about what are the most important things we can do to empower employees and what really does it mean flow, when we say flow of work and why is it so important and what Microsoft is doing about it and what can we do about it. Now, there is a big question that I do want to ask, and if you have an answer to this thing that you're thinking about, I would love to get your answer in the Q&A as well. I ask this question to ourselves as well. As I mentioned, I run a business called VisualSP. I'm the CEO, and for us also, this question is very important. Is the Microsoft alignment, the right way to go in the future? On this call, I do see some names who are consulting company owners, others who are, people, they're vendors of other products, and also end customers. In any of your situations, is the alignment to Microsoft the right one? I think we should all be asking that question since many of us are very closely aligned to it. And are they going the way that we want them to, that we need them to? One of the things that I actually wrote in an article only a couple of days ago, and actually I'll show that to you in a minute as well, is it does really feel like that Microsoft is looking to own the world. There's been a lot of acquisition. Recently, they acquired Ally.io and Clipchamp. If you're not familiar with these companies, Ally.io is an OKR, Objective Key Result company. And then Clipchamp is kind of like if you used Camtasia and Adobe, After Effects. Those kind of things where you can actually do video editing. You can do that with Clipchamp, and so they acquired those two companies as well. They're putting that into the stack. So where is it all going? Why are there so many different things that Microsoft's trying to do? I have these conversations all the time with other MVPs and others, and it really does feel like Microsoft is trying to do everything. Are they doing everything right? That's debatable, but are they trying to go into many different verticals? That is for sure. In fact, Microsoft Cloud is the biggest story that they were telling in this Ignite, and they have now vertical Microsoft Clouds for Microsoft Cloud for financial services, healthcare, manufacturing, nonprofit, retail, and I'm sure I'm missing something else as well, but all these clouds that they have hosted is going to have very specific solutions for those industries. So Microsoft wants you to do everything in their cloud, and that's also using the hardware to access the cloud, like the Surface devices, using all the software that they talk about here, using all the layers and just the cloud as a whole. So it really does feel like they're trying to own the world, in my humble opinion. Next big thing that is very prevalent is that it's not just about the physical world, but it's also the virtual world that Microsoft themselves, as well as I'm sure all of you have heard about Facebook's name change to Meta. Both of these companies, and actually a few more, but not as big, companies are betting on Metaverse. I know that's a very far-fetched idea. Those of you who watched Ready Player One probably remember how the concept of metaverse looks like, where you're spending your days directly in a second life, a virtual world all day long. It is pretty far-fetched. But some of the things that they're doing, the components that they're putting out, like these avatars that could be in the second or third dimension, the experiences, what you can do with HoloLens or Oculus, with augmented reality, some of that stuff, or virtual reality, it's all components of getting us there. Many of the friends that I talk to, they say, "Wow, that's just decades ago." But I don't know about that. I think that's going to happen sooner than we know, at least some components of it. Did you have any thoughts on that, Carrie, by the way? I know you watched the movie as well.
Well, I think that next time we host a webinar that you and I should join as avatars and
It's
see what everybody thinks.
not a bad idea. Interesting.
No, I think I mean, I definitely agree that it's challenging for people to, get back to their regular life after you've been so ingrained in online and meetings and being on camera. And it makes it challenging to even join events like this because now you've got a webinar. And I just went to an in-person event, and the excitement that people had to actually be physically there and
Hmm.
shake people's hands and see people. I think that there's a general craving for that again. But of course, the reality is that more and more people are working remotely, and that we need the tools to empower our users, to empower our employees so that they're happy and they have a good experience while they are sort of trapped in this virtual world. And it's probably going to, well, it will continue. So if we can make it as enjoyable as possible, I think that, that will make everybody a bit more productive and happier in their working environment.
Completely agree. I look at it personally from a point of view that there is, well, it's a fact that you either are working in the office, you're working at home, or you're working hybrid. And now, even going beyond that, when you're working from quote unquote home or online, that online can turn into a feeling of being together without being together physically. And it's a pretty awesome uh, aspiration to get to. Nothing is going to happen anytime soon, but some components of it is making me pretty excited looking at that stuff. Those of you who have gotten into cryptocurrency and blockchain and all, look to see how those things also will be coming in the metaverse, because there's a pretty big story of how that all comes together. I can't go too deep inside one particular area because we have a short amount of time today, so I'm going to move on. The other thing that was a big story within Ignite was the shortage of developers and what Microsoft wants to do about the shortage of developers around the world. You know, of course, there's still a demand for a lot of solutions to be created. And let's say if the developers are, or not enough programmers and developers are available in the future, what do? Either you train more people to become technical developers, or you make the tools easy enough so then anyone can use those tools to become quote unquote a developer, or like Gartner calls it, citizen developer, which means any user can take the components and start building. Now, most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Power Tools. In this case, I'm talking about Power Apps, but Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, any of these kind of things one of the things that Microsoft is doing, and they're doing it with, where it really counts as to lowering the barrier of cost, is pay-as-you-go plans. So this has been a big issue within the community, people saying, well, this is too expensive for us to do it. Everybody needs a license for it. They're lowering that barrier, which is great. It is going to get less expensive. I won't dig into the exact economics of it, but just so you know, the pay-as-you-go plan is more like you as a creator is making the actual Power App in this case, and then the people who are consuming it depend on the consumption you're paying for different things. Having said all that, the question that came to my mind was, are the tools getting easier? And that is not really the case, unfortunately. Power Apps, Power Automate, both of them are great to get started. They're easy to get started, but once you get deeper and deeper and starting writing your queries and making connections, those things I've not seen to be easy. And that's something that I wouldn't be able to say as a Microsoft employee, but I'm not a Microsoft employee, so I can I can say that. And I've given that feedback back to Microsoft many times as well. That, listen, guys, back in the day, some of these things came from products like SharePoint Designer, InfoPath. Those were tools that were easy for power users and end users. Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, not so much, especially when you go deeper inside. So that's the story for this one. Microsoft is trying to go there, but there's still a lot of room for improvement.
Hey, Asif, before you
Yeah.
move on, there is a direct question that I think is interesting from Greg with that concept. So he brought up that the unspoken challenge with citizen developers, so having our own creators, is that you still do need the resources to support them. So I'm not sure if you have anything you want to share about that, or maybe that's a discussion point that we can dig into a little deeper at the end.
Yeah, it does seem like more of a discussion point, Greg. Let us know if there's a specific question here. It is true that if a person, Gary in accounting, goes ahead and makes something, you still need to support it. Is Gary going to support it? Is the IT going to support it? Who's going to be the actual person who's going to upgrade and enhance, test, support all these things? And that's been the solution since back in the day when people started creating Excel-based solutions, and then they became a lot more complicated, right? So that's the same kind of thing. It is true when many people are doing it, then they would have to be the ones supporting it. Is, I think, the story that they're saying is business developers themselves are the ones who are responsible for it, and that's a pretty tough story, because then what if that person leaves? The information leaves with that person. So much broader discussion. Great thought though, Greg. Thanks for bringing it up. It's a developing story. All right, moving on forward. The question here becomes, when I mentioned before, all these things, the Power Apps, Power Automate, and everything else within the Microsoft 365 story, how is it really coming together with the Dynamics world? Could I ask a quick question here to folks who are on the call over here? Anybody using Dynamics right now? Would be great to know if you could raise your hands if you're using Dynamics 365. Okay, so we got a pretty big group here, and actually nobody has their hands raised at all. Very surprising. I can almost bet that that's going to change with many of you. Then the reason I say that is if you're using Salesforce currently or using other kind of tools, or you're not using Microsoft, or you're not using those kind of things at all right now, Microsoft is pushing from the top. Hate to say the word pushing, but it's true, motivating, I guess, that you want to get into the dynamic story. And the message is being sent to CIOs, CTOs, CEOs of companies that, listen, guys, if you're already bought into the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, your very next step after that is to go to the Dynamics 365 ecosystem. Those of you who are not aware of this ecosystem, which might be the case for this audience here, it is very vast. You're talking about sales, customer service, field service, marketing, resource scheduling. You can see for yourself how many different boxes are here. And something that I won't be able to point out specifically here, but there are components of Teams and SharePoint also kind of pulled here, talking about file sharing, talking about conversations. The idea here being that if you are bought into the collaboration apps and if you also buy into the business apps, then when you want to communicate information back and forth from those apps, there's a good amount of integration. So to be very specific, let's say you're working on a deal, if you're a salesperson and you're working in Dynamics 365 sales. When you're working on a deal, you need access to files that relate to that deal. Those files might be in SharePoint document library. Well, they come to you within Dynamics. It's right there. Another example is, and this is something that I'm going to show in the next slide also, if you have Teams chats and conversations which are related to this deal, they can also come directly within Dynamics. So that integration is getting much more solid. Now, vice versa, if you're in Teams, which I know almost all of you are, you can bring in components already from SharePoint, but you can also bring in components from Dynamics directly within Teams and see everything there. That whole story is just getting much more deeper. And this is what Microsoft sees as anything in, you get all the information you get in the flow of your work. So you don't have to switch context. As we all know, switching context comes with a cost. So they're just trying to make it easier and easier to, without having switched context, you get the information you want. Having said that, here's a depiction of what I was talking about. You guys are not using Dynamics here, but if you do go down that route, which I think is a good route, in my opinion, I think it's a great application. This is showing the Teams chats, channel conversations coming directly within the web browser. As you might know already, there is no other application in the world which can show Teams chats and conversations. Dynamics is the only one. So Microsoft is pushing pretty hard to give Dynamics a center stage and saying, hey, this is an important application. We're going to bring our Teams channels, and chat conversations directly in here. Pretty big deal in my opinion. All right, let me see if there's any questions. I can stop and talk about that, or I can move forward. I see a few folks saying use Salesforce and other tools. Okay, yeah, we were also a Salesforce customer before, and we had to switch actually. Let's see, Carrie, was there anything else that you want me to discuss from the questions, or should I move forward?
Well, there's more so discussion points and not necessarily questions, but things such as how can we measure the ability for, this kind of integration to actually be a useful business tool rather
Yeah.
than just being a cool gimmick and, things like that. So I think that's definitely where we're going with this is, how can we make this a useful tool for our employees that is going to increase productivity and happiness, working in this environment.
Yep, very good points over here. Thanks so much, folks, for putting that out there. Speaking of productivity and happiness, Carrie and I were talking before on these points, and some of these things are actually listed in the next slide. One of the main components that Microsoft started doing at the beginning of the year is talking about how enhancement of employee experiences should be #1 priority for every organization. And now we have seen that if you don't focus on that, if you're not focused on enhancing employee experiences, those employees are no longer your employees. It's as simple as that. So from the concept of delivering employee experiences, Microsoft has made this new brand called Viva, as I'm sure most of us know, and they're going deeper and deeper into that. They announced different pricing for it at Ignite, some Viva Suite pricing, which I'll talk to you about. They even announced that the Ally.io acquisition that I referred to earlier, that also will be coming into Viva. So if you buy Viva right now, the suite, then when Ally.io comes out next year in 2022, letting you manage your OKRs, you get that app as well. But let's talk about delivering employee experiences at a little bit more of a overview here. So helping employees be more productive working from wherever they are the words that came to my mind. So I wrote that down. As I mentioned, hybrid, in person or online or in Metaverse, wherever they are, they just have to be productive doing what they need to do. And Viva Initiative is what Microsoft is going for as the main brand, as the main umbrella for doing all that. Those of you who have not seen the 4 components of Viva. Here they are. There's connections, which many people still joke about it that, well, connections is just SharePoint and Teams together. There's nothing else. You know, you're showing your SharePoint sites and Teams. There's a lot more than that. There's the concept of bringing your business applications, actually like Dynamics, and other business applications like Workday and ServiceNow and other kind of things in a dashboard within connections. There's a Viva Insights, which if you have workplace analytics, or if you've had that before, now the workplace analytics coming into Teams, that's the Viva Insights. Viva Topics, which always, every time I look at this thing, it always reminds me of Wikipedia. You know, you go into Wikipedia, you're reading an article, you come across an item which you don't know what it is, you hover over it, it shows you a card, a contextual card that shows you more information about that item. Similarly, in a nutshell, Viva Topics is information that you have curated, that you've created somewhere, and that is being brought to where you are. So in this case, it's showing that within Teams, I'm hovering over something that's giving me information about that. So lots of good artificial intelligence at play here. And Viva Learning is something that I've personally dove into a lot, and that's what I'll be talking about in the next slide here as well, about the Viva Learning story. That is talking about the upskilling, the growth of employees, that you've given them all these tools. And we're not just talking about Microsoft tools, by the way, we're talking about ServiceNow, Workday, SAP, Salesforce, and other things. There's just all these digital tools. How do you upskill them? How do you help them on top of those tools? In addition to, of course, the Microsoft tools like the Microsoft 365 apps, including SharePoint Online, Teams, and everything else, and Dynamics 365, so many different apps. There's the overwhelm of, I have so many applications that I have to work in. When I go from one application to other, how do I know what I'm supposed to be doing? So the Viva Learning story is when you go deep into specific courses and you learn, just like you would learn at any site. But now this is happening within Microsoft Teams. So here's a slide from Ignite talking about Viva Learning's availability. November 1st was the first day, so right before the conference began, which was on November 2nd. November 1st was the first debut of Viva Learning, generally available. Keeping in mind, those of you who don't know, that this does not really come with any, the premium version of it does not come with any SKU. So it doesn't matter what you have, including E5 or whatever else. You don't get the premium version, but you can get the free version of it, which I like the free version. The paid version, not so much, because I think it's lacking lots of features. And here's the cost for the paid version: $4 per user per month. If you buy the whole suite, it doesn't spell out the word suite here, but this is talking about, if you want to buy Microsoft Viva, you get topics, connections, insights, Viva Learning, everything is $9 per user per month, but this is limited time only. They've not mentioned what limited time means, but that's what it is. And if you are familiar with Glint, if you want to add that on, then it's additional cost for that. What does that all mean though, right? Once again, how does that apply to you? Is Viva Learning a good solution? And if not, then what else can you do? So I've made lots of videos and articles talking and digging very, very deep into Viva Learning. Of course, we won't have time to talk about all of it here, but if I had to sum it all up, my conclusion, in my humble opinion, is that the free version of Viva Learning is a great tool that everyone should start using right away. And actually, I'll show you what that looks like if you've not seen it as well. The paid version, most of the things that people were looking for, which is access to additional content, being able to get their own content in Viva Learning, and be able to integrate their LMS and be able to assign things like that. You can do all that, but there's the initial cost, which is $4 per user per month. Gets kind of expensive when you have to also understand that you have to pay for the other providers and get their content in there. So that story is kind of shaky, in my humble opinion, right now. And I've given that feedback to Microsoft also. So let me actually show some of that so you get a better feel for it. This is what Viva Learning looks like right now as we speak, okay? You go to Viva Learning, which is right here. And as I go through some of these things, I'll actually explain as well that, for example, this brand, the icon, the Viva Learning cannot be changed, which is also a bummer. We actually also have an app that we have for VisualSP that we provide, and all this stuff can be changed because we heard loud and clear that, hey, this is important. So I'm very surprised that Microsoft did not or is not even looking to provide that functionality. It doesn't matter if you're paying for it or not. You cannot change that. And then when you get into it, you see some featured content, some trending content. I won't go through the whole thing because there's too much to show here, but in basic terms, once you're first here as a free user of Viva Learning, you get to search for whatever content you're looking for, or you can browse to content. I've given it some interest when I first got here, saying that I'm interested in dynamics, in leadership, in Microsoft 365, in Teams, in remote work, and SharePoint. So it's giving me courses on those interests. But even though it's showing me all these courses here, doesn't mean I have access to these courses. That's a big issue currently. We're seeing here it's saying that I have access to 10,000 plus courses. Well, not really. I can see those 10,000 plus courses here. Doesn't mean I have access to them. That access is I can only get if I actually pay for them. So that is definitely a bummer. Let me click on one of them, for example. Dynamics 365 Essential Training. So nothing here is telling me that I don't have access to it, but if I click on it, there we go. Need to be signed in. This, back in the day when I first did this, I thought, okay, well, I have access to I have access to this particular course, I know for a fact, through LinkedIn Learning. So can I just sign in? And I tried that and it didn't work. And then I went back to the product manager of Viva Learning saying, hey, this doesn't work. Like, yeah, this is only if you have organizational access to it. So personal access does not count, which I don't think is a good experience in my humble opinion. So there are certain things like that, which, obviously I've heard from many people saying, okay, well, Microsoft should just not show those courses that our users don't have access to. It's simple. Yes, but that's not happened. I'm not sure really that's going to happen. So just please keep that in mind. Having said that, there are 125 free courses that if you can find the right ones, you click on them, they will open up, which is great. Then there's a bunch of, let me actually go to Providers tab here. In addition to LinkedIn Learn, there's Microsoft Learn, and there's a Microsoft 365. Oh, I guess I don't have that enabled here, but there's a Microsoft 365. I do have, I'm sorry, I'm going around a little bit here, but here we go, this one. So the Microsoft 365 regular courses that are available, not the LinkedIn one, other ones, I guess this is not it. Anyway, some of that stuff is available for free, other stuff is not available. Sorry, I kind of bungled this up over here. There's another row that I'm not finding over here for Microsoft 365 courses that I thought I had configured. Bottom line, you do have to pay for premium content that is not available for free. That's a separate cost, okay, in addition to Viva Learning. So $4 per user per month plus the additional course content. I've not been looking at the Q&A, but is there any questions about that, about the pricing and about Viva Learning? If somebody has tried it, let's see.
There's just one question about Microsoft states that Viva and Viva Learning is not going to evolve into a full learning management system.
Correct.
Do you know more about that?
I do. So, at the end of the day, and I should have made the statement up front, Viva Learning's goal or mission, the way I understand it, is to aggregate and show all of your content in one place. Now, the show part of it means that you are, of course, aggregating and showing everything that is available to your organization. Here doesn't mean that you can, at least not in the free version, assign content or track progress and stuff. That still has to happen with your LMS. So if you're paying for Cornerstone or Saba or other LMS systems, those can be integrated, and you'll see some limited information here as to what am I assigned to if you're paying for those things as well. It is not meant to be a full learning solution. It is meant to be an aggregated, almost like a search the repository of everything I have access to kind of a solution. Yeah, that is true. Many of us actually thought the other way around, where this was going to become the true, aggregate solution. So that was disappointing, but that is the route that Microsoft is taking. It's good to know where they're going. Good thing is that there will be, or there is now, a specific tile that you can go to get access to all your content within Teams without having to, pay a different provider to get that. So, but it's very, very limited. Just being very honest here. Let me see if there's any other questions on this one specifically. Immersive experience.
While you're taking a look at the questions, I'll just make a
Yeah,
general comment. You guys might be wondering, why are we spending so much time on the learning? And I think that going back to the introduction of Asif's session and what one of the major takeaways from Ignite was, and that was to empower employees, to give them the tools that they need to succeed working online. But that is different than it was 2.5, 3 years ago. Everybody has kind of been forced to become digitally savvy, and it's getting a bit overwhelming, all of the tools that they need to embrace. And here's this app, now there's this app, and you need to do this, and this is how you communicate. And there's a new way of, we've all become Zoom experts, we've all become Microsoft Team experts. We know how to configure our camera sometimes, unless your name is Asif. Um, but so in order to actually accomplish that goal, to empower employees to utilize all these great tools that Microsoft and everybody else is investing in, we have to show them how to use them.
yep,
We have to guide them. And that is kind of the thread that we're trying to draw here, is how do we get them? We know the end goal, we know where we're at now, and we know what's kind of been forced upon employees, but let's make that experience easy for them, enjoyable. Let's guide them. And that's why we're digging in a little bit deeper to this here.
yeah. Thanks, appreciate that. Good color that you provided on that. That's very, very true. One thing I had mentioned before that I did not show yet, there's of course a limited amount of time of what we're going to be talking about here, but if you want to go deeper into the whole Ignite story, or at least the way I saw it, there is an article that I wrote. It's a very long one. I wrote that a few days ago, which talks about all the things that I'm talking about here and more, including the Viva Learning story, including enhancing employee experiences and a whole lot more. There's been a bunch of engagement on this article as well. So I'll go ahead and put this in the chat. Maybe, let's see, here we go. So yeah, like Carrie was saying, that how do you tackle that experience of learning and helping and supporting our users wherever they are? As most of you hopefully already know, that us as a company, we have been very focused on this also for years now. Now, Teams is one component, and a very important component, because that's where people are. And we have a Teams app as well, VisualSP for Teams. What about outside of Teams? How do you provide them contextual experiences everywhere they go, not just here, but everywhere? So they have dug deep into a particular course. The one I was clicking on before, which I couldn't get access to, is Dynamics 365 Sales. What if I'm an actual sales application? I have one open over here. This is Dynamics 365 Sales. How do I get help when I'm here? Do I click on the question mark? Well, good luck with that, because that takes you here. And then you're kind of lost as to, okay, what am I doing here? Or do I get help right here at my moment of need? So we talk about contextual experiences all the time with our customers as to things like buttons and links like that. Here's another button. And having an informational tab here which gives you contextual access to where you are. All these things where I'm looking for information, I get it right there at my moment of need. Resources to sales, customer use cases, flyers. This is driven using VisualSP. Or conversion of currency. I click on that. It lets me convert the currency that I'm looking to convert as a salesperson right here. I don't have to go somewhere to find it. Or if I don't know what timeline is, I hover over it, and that's also VisualSP showing how do you create a new timeline item by clicking on the plus, and you go forward. So these kind of things, walkthroughs that we show, all of these things in combination with what Microsoft is doing with Viva Learning provides a complete blended learning solution. So LMSs are still needed. Viva Learning is a great to have. And then these kind of things, we call our VisualSP system, if we've not talked about it with you yet, a digital coach. you need a digital coach to be able to guide you wherever you are. Doesn't matter which system you're in. It's always, always available, showing you exactly what you need to know. Yeah. So in our mind, a blended learning solution story with the free version of Viva Learning, with a digital coach like this one, and with your existing LMS completes the whole story. That's our thought. And of course, as you go from application to application, so now I'm in Dynamics, but if I go to SharePoint, document library, same kind of experiences appear here as well. Inline help icons, for example, showing me exactly what in this case, how I can add a column, also driven through VisualSP, or giving me a tour. So if I come here for the first time, a pulsating button, let's say a document library tour, of course, completely configurable to whatever you want it to be. In doing that, all these things combined give our employees the enhanced employee experience that they need to be successful wherever they are. Kay, did you want
And
to add
also,
anything? Yeah, go ahead.
well, yeah, I mean, I'll add one, I think this better together story that we're communicating, what's really interesting about Visual SP and exciting is that it's, just these quick little sound bites to help somebody when they're stuck,
Mhm.
where Viva Learning may deliver an entire course. Here's something that will provide you with additional capability or learning to do something, but you need to take the time to do that. And then when they go away and they're working in their environment, they don't want to have to go back, find the course, look at that again. Where was that? I think it was about halfway
Exactly.
through. But this is their reminder. Nope, this is exactly how you do it. And, really helps to complete that story. We did have a question here. Just how is Visual SP different from Viva Topics?
Good question. I think it's from Sue over here. Viva Topics and Visual SP do have similarities where you are getting contextual experiences where you are. Viva Topics specifically focuses on teams mostly. There are some integrations with SharePoint also. Our thought with Visual SP is that not just the topic cards that you get with topics, you get walkthrough experiences, inline help icons, announcement banners, any kind of item wherever you are. And I really mean wherever you are. So you could be in Salesforce, you could be in Workday, you get a consistent contextual experience wherever you are. So it's a lot more than topics in this case. Not putting down topics. Obviously, topics is awesome functionality, but it's limited to the Microsoft products, very specific products. But the general concept is the same, and we very much agree with Microsoft's approach that the contextual experiences are very, very important for users. All right, looks like there's more questions coming over here. Is Microsoft encouraging third-party Microsoft partners, Visual SP with Viva Learning besides Viva Topics? Yeah, so Microsoft's relationship with third-party partners has changed quite a bit. We look at ourselves as augmenting things like Viva Learning, Viva Topics, and stuff like that, not really replacing it. Of course, customers have their own, you know, it's up to them what they want to decide as to what to go with. But there are certain gaps which Microsoft is not looking to fill that we're definitely here to assist our customers with. Good question, though, Stephen.
And I think with that, and again, Asif has said that, using the free version of Viva Learning alongside Visual SP can really provide a great blended learning approach. You know, for those companies that are able to invest in, Viva Learning, the full premium version, that can be a great option. It doesn't necessarily take the contextual learning through the full suite, but we do hear from companies that just say we simply don't have the budget for that. And in that scenario, there is a pretty large differential between the cost of Visual SP and the cost of the premium version of Viva Learning. So I'm not sure if you want to give a quick overview of that, or I could always send out some more information on pricing. But we try to really make sure that this is attainable and that it is something that we find it so important for users to be able to have this type of functionality, that we don't want to make it unavailable for companies to use.
Absolutely. If you do have questions about specifically about pricing of VisualSP, you could go to pricing on our site. You'll see that right there. It is very transparent. I won't go dig into the pricing here, but we have heard that from our audience that we're looking for some very specific use case scenarios, and Microsoft has not gone there. They will never be going there, and we need to go do that. So they come to us, or sometimes a combination of both. And Microsoft encourages that. It's we're a partner of Microsoft, obviously, for that. So I was trying to go through some of these questions here, and then let's see. Caroline had a good statement. I'm not sure if this is a question or a statement, Caroline. Immersive experiences have been used for some time in a gaming world context. I think one of the challenges with mesh is how to get it taken seriously and how to, yeah, how to measure stability for a useful business tool. Oh, okay. This is, I think, the same one that Carrie, you were talking about before. Yeah, it's a very good one. Thanks, Caroline, for pointing that out. I definitely see many of these things getting more and more into business as essential tools. But that's true that many of these things are considered as just cool these days. I know we're almost out of time over here. I did have this one last thing to just mention, that for those of you who want to continue the conversation with VisualSP, either for your blended learning solutions that you're considering, and we can help you with that, or for the VisualSP product specifically, Carrie is your main contact. That's Carrie@visualsp.com, and this is our site. Since we do dig into learning on a whole very deeply, if you do have questions, even besides VisualSP, and you're looking for, looking at some strategic concepts right now not clear in your mind, we can definitely help you with those as well.
Great. Well, we are at time, so thank you all so much for joining us today. Again, email me any other questions. We usually like to summarize those and publish them and share them with everybody. So someone else might have a question that you weren't thinking of, but it's very helpful to have those responses. So feel free to send those my way. And yeah, also take a look at that blog article that Asif wrote. It is extremely insightful. We look forward to seeing your comments, and you're welcome to send us questions about that article as well, and we'd be happy to answer those for you. So thanks again, and take care. We hope to talk to you very soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.